Hi, I'm John Stevenson, and we're going to be looking at Psalm 6, a prayer for healing. We begin with the superscription for the choir director with stringed instruments upon an eight-stringed lyre. We've had a number of references already to music and how the Psalms, it reminds us. The word psalm actually is a term, it's a musical term. But this is on the eight-string lyre. Now we saw earlier this royal standard of dating back 1,000 years before David's day, and this is the Psalm of David. So this is the instrument that had been around a long time. Now the psalm itself begins once the superscription is over. O Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger. And notice that David is asking God not to do these things. Do not rebuke me in your anger, nor chasten me in your wrath. Notice anger and wrath are just two different ways of describing the same thing. Rebuking and chastening are two different ways of describing the same thing. So this is parallelism. Verse 2, he's going to ask God to do certain things. Be gracious to me, O Lord, for I'm pining away. Heal me, O Lord, for my bones are dismayed. That's why we call this a psalm for a prayer of healing. Notice how he says, my bones are dismayed. That's going to carry over into the next verse. Here, notice, not only are my bones dismayed, my soul is greatly dismayed. But you, O Lord, how long? Return, O Lord. Notice that the O Lord sort of done doubly. So he talks about how his soul is greatly dismayed. Verse 4, return, O Lord, rescue my soul. Save me. So he asks for rescue, but then also save me because of your loving kindness. I don't think we've talked yet about that term loving kindness, the term chesed, but we'll come back and see that in a future lecture. For there is no mention of you in death, in Sheol, and notice what he's requesting for. He's requesting deliverance, but he gives a reason for that in verse 5. The reason he's asking for deliverance, he says, look, if I'm dead, I can't talk about you. I can't give you thanks. I'm here to do that now. Reminds me of a prayer that Hezekiah gave in the book of Isaiah one time. He says, Lord, if I die now, I'm not going to be around to praise you. And, sort of saying, and I don't think he means this in a disrespectful way, but God, you have a vested self-interest in saving me because I'm glorifying your name. Now, I don't think that, don't take that too strangely. But he says, look, there's no mention of you in death. I'm here to give you thanks, and I want to continue giving you thanks in Sheol. And Sheol is what we would call the grave or the place of the dead. So notice, again, those two lines are in parallel. We understand one by the other and vice versa. Verse 6, I am weary with my sighing, and this is an expression of deep grief and sorrow. We continue, every night I make my bed swim. I dissolve my couch with my tears. Notice the bed and couch are saying the same thing. Um, Now, we're not supposed to take this literally. This is known as hyperbole. That is, he's speaking this way over the top. He's not literally swimming in his bed, or his couch isn't actually just falling apart because of his tears. But that's figurative language to describe the deep expression of grief. He continues, my eye has wasted away with grief. It has become old because of all my adversaries. And again, don't take that literally. It's still the hyperbole. His eyes are still there, but they're looking red. He's looking like an old man because of this deep grief through which he is going. Now, back in Psalm 4, we had an evening prayer. Then Psalm 5, remember how we had a morning prayer? We're back in the evening because we're talking about the bed and the couch and sleeping and so on. So we've gone sort of back and forth with a night and a day and another night in this psalm. We come to verse 8, depart from me, all you who do iniquity, for the Lord has heard the voice of my weeping. So now he's been speaking to God. Now he's speaking about God. The Lord has heard the voice of my weeping. The Lord has heard, he repeats again, my supplication. The Lord receives my prayer. And so this is an expression of faith. All my enemies will be ashamed and greatly dismayed. They shall turn back. They will suddenly be ashamed. And so, yes, this is his expression of faith in the Lord that God has heard and is going to answer his prayers. But notice that last reference in verse 10, the two double references to my enemies will be ashamed. They will turn back. They will suddenly be ashamed. We have to remember that this is written and taking place in an honor and shame culture. We don't think about that much in the West today, but there are cultures and have been, and we're back in biblical times, that put great emphasis on honor and conversely upon shame. And this reminds us of something we read in the New Testament in Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 2, where we're told, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, here it is, despising the shame. Jesus went to the cross and took our shame upon himself. We who were his enemies, he took our shame upon himself so that we might receive honor and glory. Notice, he has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God, and he calls us to be heirs with himself.